How did life look like before the flood? The time, before the flood, is so wild and different that it almost seems like a fantasy. But it was real, and we get to know the figures and their importance in the biblical story, unlocking the mystery of these ancient times. A situation in which one side was evil and far from God, and the other side had an intimate relationship with God. In that time, humanity was experiencing a period of innovation during this time, which we will also explore. If you are interested in knowing more, stay with us. Let's begin. In the era before the flood, humans lived for hundreds of years, a remarkable concept in today's world. Think about knowing your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. Like Methuselah, Noah's grandfather, who lived to be 969 years old. God designed Adam and Eve to be perfect, but sin changed the course of perfection. Flaws crept in, and life expectancy was reduced. The details of generations and lives are limited in the Bible, but certain parts exist, so we must explore to understand the reality that existed before the flood. The story of Adam's sin takes us from the description of the creation of the world and the creation of man to the description of future generations. The tree of knowledge is forbidden to Adam. Try to imagine that there is a miraculous fruit that whoever eats of it receives renewed knowledge. Until a person tasted the fruit of the tree, he did not know what sin was. Before Adam sinned, he saw his organs as a means of uniting with his wife and having children. And because of that, they had no reason to be ashamed. But when eating from the fruit of the tree, they saw the nakedness as a sin. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. Genesis 3 verse 7. And immediately he sewed a garment for himself to hide his nakedness. And from here starts a process of defining the differences between the good and the evil. This process starts with the sons of Adam and runs through the generations until Noah. Eve gives birth to two sons, Cain and Abel. With them comes the innovation that existed before the flood. They started the era of innovation and deposit production for themselves. Abel's work, shepherding sheep, is relatively easy work, free and liberated, leaving a person free time for thought and observation. He does not belong to a specific land but wanders by nature. On the other hand, Cain's work, the work of the land, hard work. A tiller digs and plows, sows water and cares, and waits a long time for the land to yield a crop. There is a lot of bitterness in this work. But here suddenly, sin enters again. When Cain harvests his fruits, he brings them as an offering to God. Cain is the one who came up with the idea, and Abel also brought after him. However, the value of Cain's offering drops compared to Abel's offering, which he brought from the first fruits of his sheep and their milk, which means that Cain did not bring the best of his fruits. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. Genesis 4 verses 4 to 5. It seems that it was clear to the brothers that only one of them would be chosen, and Cain thought that since he was the eldest, he deserved to be chosen. Cain saw his brother Abel as a competitor, and when Abel was chosen, Cain killed him. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Genesis 4 verse 8. As a result of Cain's act, God punished him by making him a wanderer. As mentioned, Cain was connected to the earth and his work expressed his materiality. The purpose of cursing the earth for him is to disconnect Cain from the material and make him engage in more spiritual work. Cain, who was not ready to change his ways, not ready to separate from the land, did not do so. So Cain builds a city in the face of God's command, in total opposition to it. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. Genesis 4 verse 17. From here, the Bible continues to tell us about Cain and Seth's lineage, but the innovations do not end here. The description of these generations is written briefly. There are generations that all we are told about are their names, and there are those that the Bible details more about. In Cain's lineage, Cain's first son is Enoch. Despite not knowing anything about him, Cain's city was named after his son Enoch, as well as the later generation. We were not told anything about Irad, Mehujael, or Methuselah. The sixth generation is Lamech, about whom we are given more detail. Lamech married two women, one named Ada and the other Zillah. Genesis 4 verse 19. From here the Bible expands and specifies that Lamech's children were artisans. Yuval was the father of all violin and organ makers. During this early period, music represented culture, and he was a leader for the musicians. His second son, Tubal-Cain, was a copper and iron plow. The mining and processing of copper and iron require a great deal of technological knowledge. Thus, Tubal-Cain represents the industrial sector. After 7 generations, the members of the Cain dynasty reached the top in the areas of wealth, culture, and industry. Cain initiated his dynasty in his material way, and his descendants already dominate all the material areas of the world. This glorious dynasty ends in a tragic event. When Lamech killed a man, he boasted to his wives that he killed him only by giving him a wound. Cain's materialistic lineage, which describes achievements in all areas of matter, and following lust, opens with murder and ends with murder. As mentioned, Cain could not force God to choose him, so another son was born to Adam, and he was chosen by God. Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth, saying, "God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him." Genesis 4 verse 25. The dynasty of Seth corresponds to the ideal world, and the dynasty of Cain to the practical world. As in the list of the Cain dynasty, likewise in the Seth dynasty, there are characters whose deeds were written, while others had only their names written. As a result of Abel's died, Seth became God's chosen. We are not told anything about the 4th, 5th, and 6th generations, Kenan, Mahalalel, and Jared. Then emerges into the story Enoch, from the 7th generation, is one of the most prominent figures on this list. After he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more because God took him away. Genesis 5 verses 22 and 24. Enoch reaches the highest rank. This is a description of a righteous person, who also exists in the name of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Genesis 6 verse 9. This worship of God means that all his actions were according to God's will. There was no mention of Methuselah in the 8th generation, but there was mention of his son Lamech, Noah's father. He had a son. He named him Noah and said, "He will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed." Genesis 5 verses 28 to 29. By naming his son Noah, he not only indicates his desire to improve the face of the world, but also sets a destiny for him. There are 2 identical names in the 2 lists of the Cain and Seth dynasty, and they are Enoch and Lamech. In both lists, These names are dominant figures. Enoch son of Cain indicates only dealing with material things, while opposite Enoch indicates attachment to the spirit and following of God. Cain's descendant Lamech indicates the end brought by the lineage of matter, whereas Lamech, the father of Noah, indicates concern and resurrection for the world and humanity from the lineage of Noah. It seems that the coming of righteous people into the world requires a longer preparation. Another fact that emerges from the list of dates is that the flood was in 1656 BC after the creation of man, exactly in this year Methuselah died. The only ones who saw the flood from the Seth dynasty were Noah and his sons. Immediately after the description of the two dynasties, of the first 10 generations, the Bible states, "When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose." Genesis 6 verses 1-2. Here comes another element to the story of the world before the flood where a major event took place in the heavenly realm, the rebellion of Satan and his followers. The Bible points to the creation of the sons of God, angelic beings who witnessed the creation of the world and celebrated the glory of God. The fallen angels, led by Satan, defied their appointed place in heaven, and initiated a cosmic conflict. This rebellion created a spiritual war, with Satan plotting to undermine God's authority on earth. However, God's sorrow over mankind's moral decline reached a point where drastic intervention was required. The flood became a symbol of purification, the erasure of rampant evil. In this divine sorrow, Noah's righteousness stood out, prompting God to make a covenant with him. The covenant, symbolized by the rainbow, represented God's promise never to destroy the earth with a flood again, offering a glimmer of hope and a new beginning for mankind. We hope you learned something new today. If you did, give this video a like and share it with your friends. You can share with us what you know by leaving a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more informative and entertaining content. Thank you so much and see you next time.